Have I got a treasure to share with you today? In this episode of Arif and Ali Picks, I get to share with you the powerful podcast, How to Get Rich Without Getting Lucky. Now, the worst thing about this podcast is its smarmy, clickbaity title, How to Get Rich. I mean, it truly sounds like some get-rich scam. But fortunately, that's far from the truth. This is the real deal. And to get right into it, first, who is Naval? Now, Naval is the self-proclaimed angel philosopher, tech investor who has invested in a large number of tech companies. The most notable are Twitter and Uber, which have exited probably at some billions of dollars. That makes his net worth today somewhere around $40 million. So he knows a thing or two about getting rich. In this podcast, he shares his insights and perhaps the evergreen principles on what it takes to get wealthy or get rich. I just love this podcast. It is so intense and is filled with knowledge bombs. I've heard this back to back twice. The whole podcast put together is probably 3.5 hours. So I've heard it back to back twice, really slowly, taking notes as I keep hearing it. I've downloaded the transcript of the entire podcast as a PDF. I'll try to put that in the description below. There's absolutely no way I'll be able to do justice to the podcast. So I just hope by sharing my highlights, I've created enough curiosity in you that if you're interested in the topic of getting wealthy, entrepreneurship, this is a must hear. So without any further ado, here are my top highlights of Naval's podcast, How to Get Rich Without Getting Lucky. My first highlight is seek wealth, not money nor status. Now, what is wealth? Wealth is the assets that earns for you while you sleep. So it is the factory that is creating widgets while you're sleeping. It is the property for you that is earning you rent while you're not busy, certainly actively busy looking after that property. These are traditional forms of wealth. The more modern forms of wealth is the code in the form of an app or in the form of a website that is running for you 24/7 while you're not actively running it. Or it's the media, it's the YouTube video that is playing for you, gathering you views, gathering you likes, gathering you comments, and eventually gathering you wealth as well while you're not actively behind the camera speaking out to people. So seek out wealth, assets like these, not money. What's money? Money is simply a point system to keep track of the value that you have generated for society. The more value you generate for society, society rewards you with these points, and let's call these points money. Now, of course, money or these points is how we transfer wealth. And if the government decides to print more points, then that devalues the current points that you have, that devalues the money that you have. So therefore, understand the difference between wealth and money, and you want to go for wealth. Therefore, to get wealthy, you've got to own a business or part of a business or a set of assets that earn for you, that generate for you, that provide value for society while you sleep. That is the surefire way to get wealthy. The next point Naval speaks about is be an entrepreneur. He shares you will never get wealthy by renting out your time. To get wealthy, you've got to own a piece of business, you've got to own a piece of equity to gain true financial freedom. Why won't you get wealthy by renting out your time? Because there are only so many effective hours in a day. Your input is limited, your effective hours are limited, your potential for wealth growth is limited. Even if your charge out rate is really high, for example, for a doctor or a lawyer, when your outputs are directly linked to your inputs, you could be easily replaceable. Therefore, you will never be truly rewarded by society. However, when you assume the risk of an entrepreneur, at that point, your upside is potentially unlimited. How do you be an entrepreneur? You've got to figure out what society wants and does not know how to get, and how you can provide that at scale. And when you're able to do that, society will reward you handsomely for that. The next point that stood out for me in Naval's podcast is arm yourself with specific knowledge. Specific knowledge is usually something highly technical or highly creative. It's not something that can be easily coded away, taught in a classroom, or replaced. It comes in many shapes or sizes. It often looks like in form of a highly tuned judgment. It could be judgment in investing in stocks and shares, judgment in executing real estate projects, judgment in running a trucking company. In a broader definition, it could be highly tuned judgment in something to build or something to sell. A good place to start looking for specific knowledge is, what are you obsessed with? What is it that you can't help stop thinking about? Once you find it, invest everything in your power to develop that skill. And since you are obsessed with it, you will by default be spending more hours than anybody else who is not truly obsessed with it, and therefore gain an edge than the rest of the market. My next highlight from Naval's podcast is, use leverage when it comes to amassing wealth. 30 years ago, if you wanted to expand your business, you would need large amounts of capital, millions or billions of dollars. You would need a team of people or an arm of people following you. That leverage, because without that, you'd not be able to expand at scale. Both of these forms of leverage, capital or labor, are permission-based leverage. You need somebody to give you the capital. People should be willing to follow you, and at any point they can change their mind. A very powerful means of leverage, but now, today, thanks to the rise of the internet, it's never been easier to pursue your passion and have an audience for your work. We are truly living in an unprecedented time. Code and media are the new forms of leverage. You can now create any piece of content or code and distribute it to the world, to as many people as you want. I mean, that's truly incredible. And that's how the new fortunes will be made. If you want to get rich, pick a business model with leverage. The next point Naval speaks about is embrace authenticity and accountability. The problem that the internet creates is that it's so easy to enter the market. So anybody can do it. Now, if you have to stand apart, if you want to escape competition, you have to embrace authenticity and accountability. The reasons like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk have a cult-like following is because, in addition to providing massive value to the market, furthermore, they never wavered from who they were and continue to remain accountable for their work. If you remain authentic and remain accountable for your work, you can keep refining what you do until you become the best at the world at what you do, and society will reward you handsomely for that. Well, those are my highlights of Naval's podcast. He summarizes in the end by a couple of lines. The first is, learn to sell, learn to build. If you can do both, you'll be unstoppable. The next one is, productize yourself. He explains further, productize would cover specific knowledge and leverage. Yourself covers authenticity and accountability. So if you're thinking long term, ask yourself, am I being authentic? Is this how I would like to project myself? Am I creating a product? Am I using leverage, using either code, media, labor, or capital? So it's a handy way to summarize Naval's concepts. In the end, after sharing all his tips on getting wealthy, he says, once you actually get wealth, you'll realize that's not what you've been looking for. So amazing and so true is that wealth will not get you happiness. Wealth will not get you peace of mind. After your basic needs are taken care of, perhaps a little more, any incremental amounts of wealth give very little incremental amounts of happiness, satisfaction, or peace of mind. So I love the balance that he brings across the whole podcast. Yeah, so if any of this resonated with you, please go ahead and listen to all of it. It's filled with tremendous insights. Each time I listen to it or read it, there's something new that I find. I hope you found this useful. If you did, please leave a comment below. It's always encouraging for me to know that this content is helping someone. Yeah, until our next episode of RFNLE Picks, take care. Goodbye.